Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jason, and today we're going to be looking at part 2 of the Arachnified class for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is a homebrew class by me, and today we're going to be looking at Arachnified Feats and Archetypes. So, sit back and enjoy. Now, before we get started, I do want to remind everyone that I am an author, and if you like action fantasy with a sci-fi twist, you might enjoy my Fate of the Forge series. Books 1 and 2, Soul Part 1 and Soul Part 2, are available through Kindle or through Barnes & Noble as print on demand. So grab yourself a copy, support my work, and now, on with the video. At first level, we have Blood Drain. Now, Blood Drain is specific to Digger Ticks. You must successfully bite a creature in order to use this ability. Once per turn on a successful unarmed attack roll, you recover the same amount of hit points as the damage taken by your target. You are capped at your max HP unless you critically succeed the attack. In that case, the extra HP becomes temporary hit points. This is pretty powerful. It basically means you can feed on the people that you are attacking as long as it's an unarmed attack. You bite a target, you drain them of their blood, they get closer to dying, you recover any hit points that you've lost, and if you critically succeed, you actually get temporary hit points. Now, you can only do this once per turn, not every attack. So, this might be your first attack in, get some blood drained, and then go on and do something else that doesn't involve attacking, or take that multiple attack penalty to try again with a regular attack. But this will keep you alive and in some encounters. Of course, the thing you are attacking must have blood in order for this to work. It won't work on something like an automation, but still, in 99% of the cases, pretty cool. Claws, fangs, or stingers. This is a very thematic feel for a feat. Basically, you tailor it to the kind of attack you want to have. You're an unarmed attack character, so you can either have claws or fangs or a stinger if you are a scorpion, and you already have a tail from another feat. You basically choose to do either piercing or slashing damage instead of bludgeoning damage with your unarmed attacks. Creepy Crawler. This requires that you be crawling, which you, as you know, can do at normal speed because of your class. Creepy Crawler allows you to have a +2 circumstance bonus to attempts to demoralize targets while you are crawling. This is something that I really like thematically. You're a spider or some other arachnid, you're crawling around the combat field. You're not fighting from a standing position, you're fighting from a crawling position. You crawl towards someone, your body's moving in really unnatural and just creepy ways, and you scare the person that you're coming after. It can lead to some good effects. You're moving. As part of your movement, you get to make this check. But it's a pretty cool ability. Crushing Grip. Crushing Grip. This is specific to Scorpios. For an action, you can grapple an opponent and you get to do 1d6 bludgeoning damage without having to make an additional attack roll. You can only do this once per turn. You may repeat the damage each turn that you maintain the grapple. So maintaining the grapple would be an action, but once you've maintained the grapple, there you go. You can deal additional 1d6 damage. The person's trapped. They can't get away. You keep hurting because you keep squeezing them with those pincers. Danger Sense. This is a Scarlet Slinger ability only. This one gave me no end of trauma just trying to figure out how this would work in Pathfinder. I've gone through so many permutations of it, and it might not be the last version of it. But I needed to have some kind of danger sense in there because, again, I'm trying to recreate Spider-Man in addition to all these other types of arachnids. I wanted danger sense. So it's handled like a perception check, a secret perception check, but the circumstance bonus is based on the intensity of danger. You don't have to be able to see your foe. You're detecting the danger presented by either a character or some other danger, an environmental danger, a trap, things like that. So if it would be minor injury, it'd be only a +1, all the way up to +5 if it's something that could take out all your hit points in one blow. Your danger sense has a range like a weapon. Short range is 20 feet. Normal range penalties apply for threats beyond the first range increment. Success will warn you in time, negate the benefits of effects like a rogue's surprise attack, and allow you a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC against that threat, or any threat that you detect. So if there's a cluster of 20 assassins, and within 20 feet of you, there are maybe 7 of them have gotten that close. The DM rolls the secret perception check for seek, and if you succeed, you detect all 7 of them. You take the seek action, and if you succeed, the same benefits would occur if you would normally take in the seek action. You just get a modifier because of how dangerous it is, and you get a circumstance bonus against those assassins or whomever you're coming across. If it were a trap, you get a +2 circumstance bonus against that trap. You do not get a circumstance bonus toward saving throws. So your reflex saving throws are not affected by this. But there are feats later that will change that. So there it is, danger sense. Really hard for me to wrap my head around, and I hope I got something that's going to be usable. I'll tweak it if I ever get to play this. I really want to play this in a game. But if someone in the comments comes up with a better way to do it, I will play around with it and see if it works better. And if it does, great, I'll make a change. If not, it's going to stay like this for now. Dark vision. You get dark vision. Ooze through obstacle. This is a bonded breed ability. You know how some campaigns hate doors? This particular bonded, if they have this feat, don't really care about doors so much because they can attack through them. Basically, you can ooze your bonded's form through any cracks to be able to manipulate objects on the other side. It's limited to your normal reach and to your normal senses, but the ooze touches an imprecise sense when performing this action. And if you have tendrils, which is in the next feat, extra limbs, you may attack through obstacles using this feat. So you need to have both ooze through obstacles and extra limbs, tentacles, in order to be able to pull off an attack through a door. But I mean, that's the first 2 I would take if I had a bonded. It's a pretty cool combo. And even if you can't attack through the door, you can still go through the door and manipulate things. So you might be able to get the key, unlock it, and then go through the door and attack. Not too bad. Extra limbs. Your body has sprouted additional limbs based on your breed. Grants you abilities based on the limbs you gain. These are considered unarmed attacks, just with different traits. So you get to choose your breed, and then whatever your breed is determines what extra limbs you have. A bonded obviously would have tendrils. We mentioned those before. They do an additional 1d4 to your bludgeoning, to your unarmed attacks. And they have the grapple, reach, and unarmed traits. So they are not agile. but still, it's pretty potent. And it's an extra 1d4 to your unarmed attacks. Digger ticks, let me move this up. Digger ticks have gripping mandibles. Again, tenacity of a bulldog. Once they grab onto you, they do not want to let go. You get the grappled and unarmed trait, and they get 1d8 piercing instead of addition to your unarmed bludgeoning attacks. So you have 1d4 bludgeoning or 1d8 piercing, depending on what you're trying to do. And since you're a digger tick, what you're trying to do is puncture their skin to suck their blood. So, you're probably going to be happy with 1d8 piercing instead of an additional bonus to your bludgeoning. Hairy hunters, scarlet slingers, and widowmakers all get spider legs, but they have different effects to them. Hairy hunters are more powerful, rugged spiders, so they do more damage than the other two. They get 2d4 bludgeoning instead of the 1d4 bludgeoning bonus that the other spiders get. The hairy hunters are grapple, reach, and unarmed for their traits with those extra limbs. Scarlet slingers only get a 1d4 bludgeoning, but they are agile, reach, with their ability with their limbs. And widowmakers get 1d4 bludgeoning, but can do trip, reached, unarmed traits. So depending on the type you are, you're a little bit better with your limbs at certain things. And of course, Scorpios get tails, which combined with the claws, fangs, or stingers allows you to, instead of doing the extra 1d4 bludgeoning, you can do piercing damage. So instead of doing 2d4 bludgeoning total, you would do 2d4 piercing damage, which has the shoved, reached, and unarmed traits. All in all, a pretty powerful, for the level, feat. Now, this does not scale. You don't get extra as you get further on, so the extra damage isn't going to be as potent later on, but it's still extra damage. Light step. You must be a widowmaker to have this. You move quietly, hardly disturbing the ground as you pass. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to stealth checks based on sound or tremor sense. So it's very difficult for someone to detect you moving toward them. They can still do it, but you're a little more stealthy than others when it comes to creeping up on people. Venom. For an action, you can do piercing damage instead of bludgeoning, and the target must make a fortitude save to resist your spider venom. So, I call it spider venom, but it's actually just venom. So critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, they take 1d4 poison damage on top of the damage for the strike. On a failure, they suffer spider venom's afflictions at stage 1, and at critical failure, they suffer the stage 2 affliction. So let's take a look at what those are. They are enfeebled 1 or enfeebled 2, both for 1 round. So again, keeping that feel of a spider. Arachnids are usually venomous. Ticks usually aren't, but the digger ticks have the ability to take this as well. I didn't want to limit them. I figure a poisonous digger tick, it's pretty dangerous. Web Slinger is by far the most complicated of the feats in this game, because you can do so much with it. Again, this is one of those that's pretty powerful, so I've got some restrictions on it. Some of them lighten as you get further in, others you don't. So you can create webbing that you can use for a variety of effects. You can basically take certain actions with this web. So you can create webbing that you can use for a variety of effects. The webbing has an AC equal to your class DC and is considered the same hardness, HP, and BT as thin steel. So you can look that up in the core book and see what those stats are. However, fire and slashing attacks do double damage against your webs. This is in keeping with classical canon, where Spider-Man's webs were weak to those kinds of abilities. those kinds of effects. You are trained with your web slinging. You can use the following basic actions with your webbing, subject to the DM's discretion. You can do aid, delay, interact, ready, release, arrest to fall, replacing the requirement with you have web slinger, and grab an edge. In addition to those core ability actions, you can take the bind web action and 2 other web actions of your choice, and each time you take this feat again, you may take 2 more web actions. The full list is on page 11. We will get to those in just a moment. I'm actually going to skip down to them because I think it's important to cover it. And we'll go skip to the restrictions as well. Web slinger actions. So there are a lot of them. And again, this is why it's so powerful, why I had to limit to 3 to start with. Before we get into the actions, I want to talk about mechanically and thematically how the web slinging works. Right here on the wrist, right about here, those characters who have web slinger have a little growth in the shape of a spider that is facing the back end is facing the wrist. There is a reason for this. Anybody who has ever spent too much time, like I have, with the Spider-Man canon knows that the big joke about Spider-Man is that real spiders don't shoot webbing from their hands. They shoot it from their backsides. And what they shoot from their hands is used for reproduction. Yeah, that's not what he does. He's not shooting that. He's shooting webs. So to eliminate that joke, you have a little spider-shaped growth on your hand that is emitting webs out of the spider's backside, like a spider does. So it's not you shooting the webs, it's the little spider on your wrist. Scarlet slingers, those spiders are red. The others, they're either black or the color of the character's skin, possibly with a little outline around them to make it pop a little bit. So, with that explanation stated, here are the web actions. Bind. You have to have at least one hand free in order to be able to use your web. You can cast a web at a single target. If you hit, the target is restrained until the webbing dissolves or until they succeed a strength check versus your class DC. Simple, straightforward. Instead of being this big area that is covered in webbing like the web spell, it's a single target, whip, bind them. Blind. You use your web attack to cover the target's eyes. If the attack succeeds, the target is blinded. Again, they have to, it's the same idea. If they can get it, if they can do the strength DC, they can get it off. I don't say that in that, but that's going to be a general rule here. If you can you beat the class DC, you can get it off. You might rip a little of your skin off doing that, but do you. Disarming web. I need to get rid of that prerequisite because they all have the same prerequisite. You successfully strike an item held by another creature. Okay, so I need to make some tweaks to this because this was originally a separate feat rather than a web action. So I need to make some tweaks to this. But bottom line, you can use your webs to disarm. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to disarming when you use a web line. You can yank the weapon to your hand by making an athletics check as your next action. So you thwip and yank, and the item falls out of their hand. If you make a second athletics check after that, you can bring it to your hand. So thwip, I'm yanking the gun out of your hand, and athletics check, I'm catching it. If not, it just goes in a random place. Dismiss. I felt this was an important one to have. You can dispel your own webbing. This is going to come up really important when we get to gag. it takes the same number of actions to dispel a web as it took to create it. But you can get rid of the web if you need to. So if you restrain somebody and it turns out they weren't a foe after all, and you need to get them out of the webbing, you can use an action, the web goes away, and they're free. Gag. You cast a web over a creature's mouth. Each size larger than medium takes an extra action to completely gag. Which makes sense. Larger creature, theoretically larger mouth, harder to gag. On a critical success, you can also cut off the target's airway. Again, really important to have dismiss if you don't want them to suffocate. On a failure or a critical failure, the restraint simply fails. Shield. You've seen this one in the comics. Spidey whips up a web shield to protect himself. It's usually almost a dome. I didn't want to make something that big. I figured that doesn't make any sense, although maybe for a future feat later on. You can basically recreate shields that are in the game out of webbing. It takes you 1 action to create a buckler, 2 actions to make a standard shield, and 3 actions to make a tower shield. And you basically treat it like the shields in the core book. Swing. Now we're talking. You can cast a web line, which lets you traverse areas that would normally require flight, as long as you have an anchor point for your web. You may either swing traditional arc, or you may thwip and yank yourself across, but you basically can get across those areas that would normally require you to jump or fly. Your swing speed is equal to your normal ground speed, so you can step or stride using webs. You may also use this web line to create the equivalent of a tightrope across a distance equal to your ground speed, so it's equal to your stride. If you spend an extra action, you may arc the web so that it goes further to a maximum of 3 actions for 3 strides. You don't cross, you're just making the tightrope, which means others can follow you, but they have to balance across the tightrope. You could theoretically make 3 of these over the course of 3 turns so that they have 2 handles and a place to step, so that they're safe crossing. Takes extra time, but it might be worth it for people's safety. Tether. Basically webbing things so that they don't go away. This is like hanging bad guys that you've captured from the ceiling, or chaining a dog to a fence, that kind of thing. Make a single web line to web something, to hang it in place, to web it to the ground, to web it to something nearby. Basically, you're creating a leash. This can be really important if, for example, a wagon is teetering on the edge of a cliff. You don't have the strength to stop it from going over, but if you can cast 3 or 4 of these tethers, you've got it stable, and so you can work on rescuing people rather than worrying about the thing going over the edge. Yank is basically you flip something, you yank it your way. This has to be something that isn't in somebody's possession. That's what disarming web is for when something is in somebody's possession. But if it's just something like, oh, I need my keys, flip, yank, grab, got them. Okay, so those are the abilities. There are restrictions, however. You don't have an infinite amount of webs. The webbing is produced by your body. Like other parts of the body, the web glands can be overtaxed. You have a number of web actions equal to half your constitution value plus your level. After that, you must spend an action to make a fortitude save against a DC of 10 to reload. If you have the drained condition, add the value of drained as a modifier to the difficulty. Critical failure is the same as a failure. You don't recover your webbing. You must take another action and try again, but you are at -2 to your circumstance penalty on this attempt if you try again. Failure, you don't have the circumstance penalty. Success, you recover your webbing in full. And critical success, you recover your webbing, and the next time you have to do a recovery, you benefit from a +2 circumstance bonus. So those are the restrictions on this feat. It's a big feat. There's a lot of moving parts here, but it's like the defining thing for Scarlet Slingers. So you have to go into this kind of detail. And frankly, who wouldn't want to be able to weave webs like this? I'm sure you can think of more actions that I didn't think of. And there are feats that expand webbing even further down the line, but this is the basic. This is what you get to start. The final feat at level 1 is Web Walker. You may navigate your own webs and other webs, web nests, and the web spell webbing without treating it as difficult terrain or having to make athletics checks or reflex saves. So basically, you can walk on webs without penalty. You treat it like it's the ground, which is sensible considering you're an arachnid. I might have thought to trigger this to be just arachnids that are spider themed, but I didn't, and I'm fine with that. You know, even though it makes more sense for spider themed characters, it makes sense for bonded too, and I don't want to leave the digger ticks and the scorpions out just because of a technicality. So it's fine. They can all have it. Okay, second level. First feat, Attack of Opportunity. You get Attack of Opportunity. Acid Strike. This is a bonded breed feat. Your unarmed attacks benefit from your ooze's natural means of feeding. You can choose to add 1d4 acid damage to your strike. So you don't have to, but if you want to, you can burn through your opponent's flesh with the acid of your ooze. So you don't have to, but you can add 1d4 acid damage. Remembering that in this reality, in this game setting, your symbiote is an ooze descendant. It's another species of ooze, and oozes attack with acid. So unlike in the comics, this version can attack with acid. Bounding. This is a reskin of the explosive leap feat from the Inventor class. I felt it was just too perfect for the Arachnified. Spiders have a well-known ability to jump large distances, and this gives them that ability. Gaping Wound. This is a Digger Tech ability. You must successfully bite somebody, and you must follow that up with another bite. This is a press attack. So your follow-up bite can do 1d4 bleed damage if you choose. Nest is basically a non-magical version of the web spell. You are able to recast it once per day so that your web doesn't just collapse. But as long as you maintain this, you can basically keep a web nest in a location nonstop. Sensory hairs. This is a hairy hunter ability. Your body is covered with tiny hairs that are sensitive to vibrations in the air. You can detect movement as an imprecise sense within a 360-degree radius around you at half the range of your tremor sense. And that's okay if the air is still, or if there's a light breeze. The checks can become harder if it's inclement weather. There's something that would interfere with your ability to detect movement, something like that. But it's pretty handy. I mean, it just expands your senses, so it's harder to sneak up on you. Spider Strength. You have the proportionate strength of a human-sized spider. Your strength score goes up by +2. This is true even if you're already at cap 18. You're allowed to get a +2 at 18, so you can go to 20 for one purchase of this. Now, you can't purchase this multiple times, but you also get to double your bulk capacity, which is incredible. Enemy Shield is a fun one. It's a reaction, and there has to be a certain number of things going on. So you have to be in a position where there's an attacker attacking either yourself or an ally, and whomever is being attacked, there has to be somebody next to them who is also an enemy. Basically, what it allows you to do is, as a reaction, either reach out and grab or cast a web and grab or somehow grab hold of the non-attacking enemy. And if it's a critical success, you can pull them in between you and the target. I'm sorry, between the attacker and the target, and the attack falls on the enemy instead of the ally or yourself. I can just picture this being just a lot of fun to play in combat. All of a sudden, your bad guy thinks he's got you dead for rights, and instead they hit their minion. Extra Creepy Crawler basically increases your bonus to +4 for the demoralized checks. Gestation Grapple. This requires the Acidic Strike feat, and you have to have successfully grabbed a creature. But basically, once you've got the enemy in a grapple, your ooze wraps around them and starts to eat them. It's just insane. It's basically living up to itself being an ooze. And it basically consumes HP the way a digger tick can, and you can get the remainder as temporary hit points. Again, it's going to be something that really extends your life in the battlefield and is just creepy to watch. Heightened Tremor Sense. Your range for Tremor Sense is now 40 feet. Nice and simple. Poison Resistance. This does require the Venom feat. Your body creates its own antitoxins, allowing you to become resistant to poison. You can reduce poison damage by your level. That is such a good thing to have in a world where there's lots of things that can poison you. Widow's Sleep is one action. It requires you to have either fangs or a stinger, and you have to have successfully bitten or punctured a creature. Instead of inflicting a poisonous bite, you can put your foes to sleep. When you successfully make an unarmed bite attack or a stinging attack, the target must make a Class DC Fortitude save or to resist falling unconscious. On a critical success, you get half damage from the bite. So you're not taking as much damage from being bitten. The bite that actually inflicted the sleep. Success, you take full damage from the bite. On a failure, you take stage 1 of the poison, which is slowed 1 for 1 round. And on a critical failure, you take stage 2, which is slowed 1 for 1 minute. If they don't manage to get the poison out of their system, they will become unconscious and cannot make perception checks to wake up for 1d4 minutes. If they progress to stage 4, they're unconscious for 1d4 hours. All right, stage 6, Burrow. This is, again, one of those things that at level 6, we start with Burrow. This is based on a trapdoor spider's abilities, where they dig a little burrow and put out sensory webs around the burrow so that they can detect things coming. And when something gets too close, it reaches out, grabs it, and pulls it in, and kills it, and eats it. This grants you the ability to do the same. Basically, the burrow is hidden from view. You need to spend 20 minutes digging or otherwise creating the burrow. Perception checks to detect it are at -4 circumstance penalty. It is only large enough for yourself and one other medium-sized creature. While you're in the burrow, you're completely obscured from the outside. You may attack anyone that comes within melee range of the entrance without having to interact with the entrance. Typically, your attempt will be to grab the target and drag them inside. Once they're in there, you are at +2 circumstance bonus on all attack actions, and your opponent is at -2 circumstance penalty. They are in a confined space. They don't know which way is up. They're completely just at your mercy. Extra attack. You are adept at making multiple attacks. You can reduce the penalty for multiple attacks on each level of multiple attack by -2. Fast Crawler. This requires Creepy Crawler. You are fast on all fours. Your crawl speed is +5 more than your stride speed. Impact Webbing is one that I got from the comics. This is just a fun little one. You have learned to create tightly packed pellets of webbing that you can fire from your spinnerets as a ranged attack. Your range is 60 feet. You do 1d8 bludgeoning damage, and each additional time you take this feat again, you add an additional 1d8. So it gives a character that is normally confined to damaging attacks up close an ability to attack at range. Shifting Form is a bonded breed ability to basically recreate any kind of clothing with their ooze. It just looks like different clothing. So you don't ever have to spend money on clothing again. You can just, oh, now I'm in a suit and tie. Oh, now I'm in farmer's clothes. Oh, now I'm in a winter coat. Now, you can get protection from the environment if you reduce your AC for each level of protection. So you reduce it -2 circumstance penalty to your AC for each level of protection you get from the elements. That's a fair trade, I'd say. Super Swing. You really move on that web line. You gain the swing action if you don't already have it, plus one other web action of your choice, as long as you haven't already gotten them all. When you make a swing action, your speed increases by 10 feet. Pretty nice. Web Whip. This is a really flavored one. And this and one other just like it is one that I'm not entirely sure is of great potency, but it just feels good to have it as a flavored ability. You basically can create a whip out of your webs, like an actual whip that you can hold in your hand. You do 2d4 slashing damage with the whip, and you can take this feat again to increase the number of d4s by 1d4 per feat level. You do become trained in whips once you gain this ability. So you don't have this whip that you're not trained in. You are definitely trained. You're not expert, you're not master, you're not anything like that. But you are trained with whips if you are not already trained. Potent Venom. This requires venom. Your venom becomes more potent than what other arachnids have available. You are able to provide Enfeebled 1 and Enfeebled 2, depending on whether you're doing stage 2 or stage 3 damage with the effect. Enhanced Crushing Grip. Your Scorpio is even more potent. It's more powerful. It can do 1d8 damage instead of 1d6, and now the bonus to your athletics to resist escaping is +4. Expert Web Slinger. You've gotten even better at slinging webs. You are now expert proficiency or master if you are a Scarlet Slinger. Infect is a really nasty one. You're a digger tick that can give people malaria. You are immune to malaria, but your bite can give people malaria. Specifically, stage 1 malaria or stage 2 at critical. Now we get into some, okay, let's have some magical abilities for spiders. Magical Strike. Your attacks now count as magical for the purposes of overcoming certain defenses. Okay, it's not incredibly powerful, but it's useful. Truth Web basically turns your webs into a magic lasso. You are Wonder Weaver. You basically cast Zone of Truth on anyone bound by your web within a 20-foot zone. You can do that a number of times per day, equal to your Wisdom modifier. Your class DC serves as the DC for the spell's Wisdom save. I'm sorry, this one just tickles me. Web Barrage. Now, people will think, you've already got the web spell as a feat. Why do this? Well, the web spell, you do it once and you leave it and it becomes difficult terrain and it does all these other effects. Web Barrage is just everybody in the 15-foot radius has to make a reflex save or be bounded by your webbing. It takes 2 actions to do, and everyone has to stop and try to avoid being blasted. You have seen this in the Spider-Man video game as one of the first abilities you get as a special ability. I love the visual of this, webs going everywhere, and people getting webbed to walls and webbed up and bound in place, and it just, mental imagery, it's just cool. At 10th level, we have Advanced Opportunity. I wanted to recreate something that was a little more like the attack of opportunity in D&D, and thought this was a good opportunity to do that. No pun intended. So the trigger is modified so that it is for ranged or melee or unarmed attacks, in addition to the other triggers for an opportunity attack. Your attack of opportunity is now triggered by any attack you can see and reach with your attacks. You may use ranged as well as melee attacks to make your reaction attack. So it basically just broadens it so that it's a little more like what people in D&D are used to. I just felt it was a little bit stronger. Blink. This requires 2 actions. You have the ability to do this a number of times per day equal to your fortitude modifier. Your breed has a genetic connection with blink spiders, or whatever the variant of that is in Pathfinder. I haven't looked at the bestiary, I'm sorry. You may cast the blink spell without components. You may do this once, and then you may wait 1d4 rounds after the spell ends to cast it again, a number of times equal to your fortitude modifier, minimum twice, after which you must rest normally to recover the ability. I think it's kind of fun. It gives the Arachnified a little more D&D flavor because blink spiders and their kind exist. Enhanced equilibrium. Your sense of balance is accelerated. You now gain a +2 circumstance bonus to acrobatic checks to prevent yourself from losing balance, falling, or being knocked prone. Protective hairs. As a hairy hunter, you have a thick coating of hair on you that provides you an AC bonus of +1, and your tolerance for cold climate improves. You may treat the current temperature as 1 step warmer in cold climates. Reactive combat sense. Your combat sense goes on the offensive. You must have danger sense. But if you are attacked, you may use your reaction to attack first with a +2 circumstance bonus to hit. If you succeed in your attack, your attacker is at -2 circumstance penalty to hit you when it becomes their time to attack. On a critical success, their attack fails. If you have heightened danger sense, increase the circumstance bonus and penalty to +4, -4. So this gives you the, I'm going to hit you. Really? I'm going to hit you first. Boom. But now I can't hit you as well or at all. Turn's wasted. Well, I have 2 more actions. I'm okay. Ultra Creepy Crawler. Now you have a +6 circumstance bonus for secret checks to demoralize your target when you're crawling. Web Dart. We're going to have to scroll up a bit because Web Dart is the ability to create a rope dart. And what is a rope dart, you may ask? Hang on a second and I will show you. A rope dart is an uncommon advanced weapon. And you have seen rope darts in movies like Shang-Chi. I've only seen the movie once, but I remember seeing the use of the rope dart. And that triggered a memory because in Avenging Spider-Man #2, he creates a rope dart with webbing and a shard of a super hard material. Basically, it is a rope with a weighted blunt object on one end and a weighted sharp object on the other. You do not have to have both. You can. This particular version just has the sharp end. But basically the rope dart, you can fling either end around and attack with it. And I think it's an awesome weapon, and it should be utilized in role-playing games a lot. I think this would be a wonderful thematic weapon. It cost a gold piece. Maybe it should cost more. I invented this stat block for this weapon. If you think it should cost more, let me know. But it does 1d4 slashing damage. It has a bulk of light, requires 2 hands. It is in the dart group, and it has a bunch of weapon traits. Agile, backswing, disarm, finesse, reach, sweep, and versatile. Now you will notice, for those of you saying, that's way too much, it's way too powerful, I left the weighted ability rankings for creating weapons in the description. So 1d4 slashing is -3. Two hands is -6. And then +2 for agile, +1 for backswing, +1 for disarm. You can read the rest. Basically, it is balanced and pretty powerful, but it's an advanced weapon. With Web Dart, you can make one of these out of your webbing. It does the same amount of dice of damage as your Web Whip, plus 1d4. So it's more powerful than a normal rope dart. You are trained with rope darts because you have this. So it is, you're pretty powerful with it, and it's got all those traits. It's a pretty powerful level 10 ability, but I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it could serve someone really well. On to level 12, we have Ability Mimic for the Bonded Breed. You can mimic the abilities of other arachnified breeds. You may take one feat from another arachnified breed when you take this feat. Basically, your ooze can mimic other abilities. That's what symbiotes were known for, was mimicking abilities of other creatures. So it makes sense, it makes sense that they should be able to do this. Dancing Arachnid, you have to have Creepy Crawler, and you have to have just taken the crawl action. As long as you use a crawl action on your last action, and you have not taken the stand action, you gain a +2 to your AC until the start of your next turn. You're basically harder to hit because you're scurrying around, going this way and that, weaving and dodging on all fours. Flavorfully, it's pretty awesome. Disease Resistance. As a digger tick, you have developed a resistance to diseases due to your regular exposure to diseased blood. You're biting an awful lot of people. You don't know what they have been around or what they're carrying. They could be sick as a dog, but you're still biting into them. So after all that exposure, you gain disease resistance equal to half your level. Master Webslinger. Your web-slinging abilities have become akin to instinct. You become master proficiency with your web slinging, or, if you're a Scarlet Slinger, legendary. You also gain 2 extra web actions of your choice if you haven't maxed out already anyway. Powerful Crushing Grip. Your grip has gotten even stronger. As a Scorpio, you can now do D10 damage instead of D8 or D6 or D4, and your ability to oppose escape attempts is now at +6. We are at level 14, and you have Accelerated Strike. You must have Extra Strike. Now your multiple penalty attacks per turn are reduced by -4. So that's pretty good. You're much better at making extra attacks, and nothing could be finer. Bristles. Again, a hairy hunter trait. You can stiffen the hairs on your body so that they impale like porcupine quills. You can choose to do piercing rather than bludgeoning damage with your unarmed attacks. Further, any unarmed attack that hits you does 1d4 piercing damage to the attacker. So, someone punches you, they're coming off with a nice bloody hand. All right, we talked about heightened danger sense at an earlier point when we were talking about reactive combat sense. So now let's find out what heightened danger sense actually does. You can treat a critical failure as though it were a failure on a danger sense roll, and a failure as if it were a success. The range of your senses is now doubled to 120 feet. So now, 120 feet of danger sense, 360 degrees, you cannot critical fail, and you get a bonus to the AC and reflex saves from a critical success. It now is at +4. Superhuman Equilibrium. Your sense of balance is now even better. You gain a +4 circumstance bonus to acrobatics checks to prevent yourself from losing balance, falling, or being knocked prone. Shifting Scurry. As long as you do not make an attack during your turn, you do not trigger attacks of opportunity, even if you pass through their melee range. You just stay out of their way. So move, interact, move, interact, 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 move, move, move. Whatever you want to do, you do not trigger attacks of opportunity. Spit. You have to have venom to be able to have this feat. You can basically spit your venom at a range of 15 feet. The damage done is poison only, So you don't add your unarmed attack to it, but still, 15 feet away, spit someone and get them poisoned? Pretty solid. Web shapes. This requires that you have Web Slinger. You are basically now a Green Lantern with your webs. You can create any basic shape. As long as it doesn't have a mechanical component, you can create it. So you can make a bridge. You can make a baseball bat. You can make any shape you want, and it will act as that thing. And it has the same hardness and armor class and break threshold as any other webbing. So it behaves like that thing, but maintains your material. So it's useful. I mean, you could if you're fighting something that has been flying away and you've been tethered to it, trying to pull yourself up to it, and it snaps your webbing and you're falling hundreds of feet, quickly cast a parachute. You can drift to safety, whereas before you would have gone splat. At level 16, controlling bite. A digger tick can now control the person it bites. Now, you can only give one action, a simple command that they must follow. But as long as they fail their will save, they're controlled and must do that one action after you bit them. Hi, I just injured you. Now go hurt your friend. Okay. I think it's just fun. Deadly venom. The venom is nearly an assurance of death. You change the clumsy trait to immobilized and add 1d4 persistent poison damage to the damage you do. Scary. Flying arachnid. When I was a Marvel heroic role-playing game player, I created a character I called Arachnite. He predates Marvel's version, and he was basically what if Batman had Spider-Man's powers. And he had spider limbs on his back as a backpack kind of thing. And it had the ability to weave webs between the limbs to create wings. So I was inspired by that to make this feat. You can spin webs between your limbs if you have extra limbs. You have to have extra limbs to be able to use this feat. But if you have extra limbs and they are spider legs, you can have a fly speed. And that fly speed is equal to your sprint speed. Now, the fly speed only lasts as long as the webs last, and then you have to land and respin the webs. But still, you get fly speed for basically an hour before you have to take them apart. Or you could just dismiss them and be done with it before the hour's up. But you're a flying spider. Anybody's going to be scared by a flying spider. Penetrating strike. This has the open trait. Your strike can pierce armor. For your first attack, you can roll 1d6 and reduce your opponent's AC by that amount for this strike only prior to making your attack roll. Weapon Mimic. You can shift your ooze into any simple or martial weapon. This requires you to concentrate. It does require you to spend an action to create a simple weapon or 2 actions to create a martial weapon. You do not gain proficiency in the weapon if you don't already have it. And you cannot hand the weapon to anybody. It's part of your ooze. And if you lose concentration, the weapon form is lost. So you have to spend another action or 2 to get it back. But still, 1 action, 2 actions, you got a weapon. Even if you're unarmed, suddenly you're not. Uncanny equilibrium. Now you have a +6 bonus to all those acrobatics checks we talked about earlier from the prior versions of this feat. Again, really solid. And unnerving creepy crawler. You look utterly terrifying when you're crawling around the ground. Your demoralized checks now have a +8 circumstance bonus. We're heading toward the end. We're at the final stretch. We are on level 18. We start off with Legendary Web Slinger. You are now Legendary Proficiency with Web Slinger. And if you were a Scarlet Slinger and you are already Legendary because you've gained the prior feats from Master Web Slinger, you no longer have a limit to the number of webs that you can sling. You can just keep casting webs. Your level constitution modifier doesn't matter. You have infinite webs. And if you didn't already, you now know all the web actions. You're maxed out. You are the best there is at web slinging. Nimble Dance. You now have a +4 modifier for dancing arachnid. Poison immunity. Once per day, you may gain poison immunity for a number of rounds equal to your level. You do have to have poison resistance first, but hey, temporary immunity to poison. It can come in clutch. Super sensory hairs. You have to have sensory hairs, which means you have to be a hairy hunter, but you now have a range of 80 feet for that and tremor sense. Your danger sense now has unlimited range. Any threat against you triggers the danger sense. You can't be snuck up on it ever. Titan's Grip. Your grip is almost unbreakable. The damage you do with Crushing Grip is now D12, and the athletics check to resist escape attempts is now at +8. The best you can do as a Scorpio. All right, here we are at level 20. You have Fatal Bite as your first feat for level 20. Requires 2 actions. And once per turn, when you bite someone and inflict venom, they gain 1 level of Doomed. Fatal Drain. You have to have the Blood Drain feat. When you perform Blood Drain, the victim must make a Fortitude saving throw or take 1 level of dying. So they immediately fall down and are unconscious and all the other things that dying normally implies. Mark of the Scorpion. Now, I just noticed while I was recording this that I left something out when I wrote this up, and that's my bad. I'll fix it after I'm done recording. But what it should say is, if they fail a Fortitude savings throw, they gain 1 level of wounded, 2 on a critical failure, and they are confused. And I'll fix that again after we're done here. All right, we're down to the last 2. Perfect equilibrium. You cannot lose your balance, fall unwillingly, or be knocked prone. You are immune to those effects. And finally, Ultimate Grip. You have to have sensory hairs to have this ability. Your hairs improve your ability to cling to surfaces and to prey. Grappling foes and holding on to them now has a +4 circumstance bonus. You are also at +2 to your strength checks to resist being pulled from a surface. All right, all that leaves is the Arachnified archetype, so we'll dive into this real quick and then we'll be done. All right, at level 2, you gain access to the Arachnified dedication. Now, this does have a typo in it. I apologize, I'll get it fixed. You are expert, not trained, in unarmed combat and with simple weapons. And you become trained in your choice of acrobatics or athletics. If you are already trained in one of those or both of those, you can pick another skill of your choice. You are also able to use the crawler feature from the main class. And of course, like any other class feat, you cannot take another dedication until you have gained at least 2 other feats in this one. There are 2 level 4 feats for the Arachnified, and the first one is Breedbound. You gain a breed, and the first level feat for that breed, you do not gain any other features of that breed. The next time you take an advanced Arachnified feat, you may use it to take a breed-specific feat instead of a general feat. Basic Arachnid. You gain a first or second level Arachnified feat, provided you meet its other requirements. At level 6, you gain Wall Crawler. You are able to use the Clingy feature from the main class. And at level 8, Advanced Arachnid. You can now take Arachnified feats that are equal to half your character level. So you can take a level 4 feat, a level 2 feat, or level 1 feat when you purchase this, unless you're already a higher level. You must meet the other requirements of the feat in order to take it. And you can select this feat more than once. Each time you select it, you gain another Arachnified feat. So, at level 20, you can take a level 10 feat. That's the highest you can get, is a level 10 feat with the Arachnified archetype. Still, it gives you some flavor that lets you be something like an Arachnified. And that's it. That's the entire class. Again, for those little errors where I had to make some corrections, I'll get those fixed. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the class. Please tell me in the comments if you get a chance to play this, and let me know how it worked for you. If you have suggestions on ways to improve it, again, drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until the next time, have a great day.